What is going on, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Sports Status Podcast. This is your host, Nate the Great. I am back. I haven't done this show in a long time, mainly because of school. I've been uh, busy. Um, I, we just wrapped, besides the final exam, we just wrapped up with the quarter, so I'll be back for as long as I possibly can. Might have to take breaks here and there. That's all fine and dandy. Today's actually episode. I'm here to talk about my particular NFL team, the Denver Broncos, as they we're now into week 14 of this NFL season. Um, and the Denver Broncos right now are 6-6, coming off of a loss to the Houston Texans. And feel free to give a like, comment, and share the episode. I will give some shares right after the show is over. Uh, so let's just say this year has been a little bit of a wild ride. The Broncos started off the season with they lost to the Raiders, the Commanders in two very close games, and then had an very ugly loss to the Miami Dolphins, 70-20. And all of a sudden, we're in this probably in the sweepstakes to go ahead and get Caleb Williams in the NFL draft is right now as it comes up. But then we go out and we win the game finally to the Chicago Bears, beating them 31-28. New York Jets. Then we lose to the New York Jets, lose to the Chiefs for the 16th time. And then we start winning out of the blue. Beat the Green Bay Packers 19-17. Beat the Kansas City Chiefs for the first time since Peyton Manning. Beat the Buffalo Bills in a very close game, coming down to the last drive. And we beat them 24-22. Then we beat the Vikings 21-20. Again, coming down to the very last drive. Beat the Chicago. No, I'm sorry, not Chicago. We beat Cleveland 29-12. Then we go out and we lose our sixth game of the season to the Houston Texans. Already we have. Now we're going on to final 5 games of the season. Play the Chargers this Sunday, December 10th, 1:25 p.m. We play the Detroit Lions on Saturday after that, closer towards an evening game though. And then the following week we play the New England Patriots Christmas Eve, and then the Chargers, and then finishing off the day before my birthday against the Las Vegas Raiders. So it took me a while. I mean, they started winning all blue, beat the Kansas City Chiefs 24-9. I don't think anybody saw that coming. Patrick Mahomes, he had the flu, but I mean, I could have very well had they could have I could have had a very well I could have had the flu on a Kansas City Chiefs led roster with and as the quarterback, and I probably would have beaten the Denver Broncos 24-9 based off of how they've been going. However, give me 1 second. And then the following week, a lot of questionable calls happens. 12 men on the field ended up being the final deciding factor to why we ended up kicking the field goal to ended up winning the game. And then a lot of close calls ended up happening, and we ended up just barely beating the Minnesota Vikings with a banged up quarterback, banged up wide receiver who won't be playing until this week in Justin Jefferson, and then everybody else, and then we still ended up just beating them by 1 point. We manhandled Cleveland, like I already talked about, and then we ended up losing the Texans. Now, all of those players, all those teams that I've talked about, they can do one thing really well. And if Denver, out of those 5 games that we won, was able to take away that one thing. Question is, if they were able to take away that one thing, is there a second thing that team was able to rely on? I'll give you an example. This is with the Green Bay Packers. Not right now, but at the time, Green Bay knew how to make second half adjustments. We were shutting them out 9-0. We were shutting them out 9-0, and then Green Bay was able to come back from that and had a 10-9 lead at one point before we ended up scoring our touchdown to make it a 16-10 game. Green Bay then scores another touchdown, and then we ended up kicking a game-winning field goal to win that game against the Green Bay Packers. But it was just enough. We were just able to put enough. We were able to shut down Green Bay Packers in that first half of the game, which is pretty much why we ended up winning the game. Going back to the Kansas City Chiefs, we had Patrick Surtain, who was able to give one-on-one coverage against Travis Kelce. Well, who's Patrick Mahomes going to be able to throw to? And that's exactly my point. That's exactly my point. They didn't have another receiver. But Patrick Mahomes, as great as he's been, coming off of a 2-time Super Bowl winner and everything, it doesn't help if, it doesn't have a solid weapon to build around them. Buffalo, a week later, the exact same thing. Now, I will say I think Buffalo does have a better receiving core, but it's not good enough. Patrick Surtain was able to give one-on-one coverage against Stephon Diggs, which allowed guys like Justin Simmons to be able to force the turnovers. I think combined between both of those games, we ended up having 9 combined turnovers. And then some questionable coaching calls. And then the next week, the Broncos go into the Minnesota Vikings. Jordan Addison, we had Josh Dobbs, who's been on a hot streak. Minnesota won 5 straight. Kirk Cousins goes down hurt. Josh Dobbs, everywhere he has gone, has started 3 starts. The first game went well. The second game, even better. By the time that third game starts, people have been able to figure out Josh Dobbs. And it goes downhill from there. There's a reason. There is a reason people have been able to figure out Josh Dobbs, and there's a reason why Arizona ended up cutting him. It's because trading him, It's because Josh Dobbs doesn't he's not the same after the first couple of games every time he goes on a new team. Now, he's smart. He is smart. He has a degree in air. He has a college degree, which has been able to help him to learn the playbook really, really fast. But the fact that he's been on 5 teams in over a year tells me really everything I need to know. Cleveland, Myles Garrett. Take away Myles Garrett, third to a different direction than where Myles Garrett is at. And it's not really the same team. Denver was able to figure that out. But then Houston happened. CJ Stroud, Nico Collins. Tate Dell, he's hurt. But you take away from that, they can win from other defense as well. They've shown that in this game. They've shown that in other games too. Now, let's look at that compared to every other game that's on the remaining games on the schedule. They play the Chargers on the road. They play Detroit. They play New England. They play the Chargers again. They play the Raiders. I could see a path where Denver goes out and loses 3 out of their next 5 games. They play the Chargers, and I'm telling you right now, I think they're going to split the Chargers. I don't know which game they're going to lose or which game they're going to win, but they're going to split one of them. We do it every single year. The Lions have not been that good, but they still have been winning. New England Patriots, Denver's probably gonna win. I don't even think they even have one guy that they're not. They don't. I don't think they even can win by. Yeah, they're yesterday's game was just a completely different story, and Pittsburgh was just outcoached. Well, we'll probably make another episode on that or something. I haven't decided how I'm going to do that yet. But Pittsburgh was just outcoached in the game against yesterday. New England's just not a good team. And then you go with the Raiders, you have Devontae Adams, but then you have Jacoby Myers. You have 2 really good weapons, and Denver does not have the pieces to cover both of those guys. Now, which one's going to get covered? I don't know. I could see it being Jacoby Myers because Jacoby is a little bit younger, but I do not know. Now, what does that leave you? What does that leave the Denver Broncos if they go out and only win 2 out of their next 5 games? It leaves you with 8-9 as the final record. Denver probably won't be going to the playoffs. Denver would probably be second in their division because they do have the Chargers in their division, and they have a rough schedule coming up. They play the Broncos, and they play the Broncos, which they'll probably, again, like I said, split us. They play the Raiders, and they play the Raiders at home. Josh McDaniels is no longer the head coach, and this has been just a completely different team. They play the Chiefs, and then they play the Bills. I could see a path where they only win one more game. So Denver's probably not going to finish on this. The Raiders, they go out, they play the Vikings next. They're an AFC opponent, it's an equally matched, but what tends to happen when the Raiders are at home, when the AFC opponents, especially when the team that it's an AFC versus NFC matchup, the AFC matchup usually ends up being the winner when the opponents are equally matched, and the AFC team is especially going to be at home, so that helps a lot. So I could see the Raiders go out and win this one. Then they play the Chargers. Again, they're at home. That they're probably going to win that one too. Then they play the Chiefs, which that one's going to be interesting. But they're not home against the Chiefs. So if, say, the Raiders go out, I think the Raiders are probably going to win 3 out of their next 5 because they do have a game against the Colts. Colts at home, they're definitely have been not looked at as well as I would have liked. They're definitely not talked about as much because last year they were just awful. So I think the Raiders are probably going to win 3 out of their next 5. And that puts the Raiders also with the same record as the Denver Broncos. They would take the second spot because they would win the tiebreaker, sweeping the Broncos again. And then they would probably not make the playoffs as well because the AFC South is pretty good. And the AFC North has the Ravens and probably the Browns making it too. So yeah, that means that Denver's probably not going to make the playoffs. Denver, what you're probably going to expect is Sean Payton again stays for another year, obviously, but Russell Wilson will probably get cut, or traded. Now, with these wins, that does up his trade value. We're probably going to get more of a, I don't want to say a first round. He's definitely not worth the first round pick, but he is, with the wins that we did get, winning 5 games in a row. That's going to mean that we're probably going to get a higher pick. Now, it's definitely not worth the trade that we got him for. We get what we gave up him for, but I do see him being more like a 3rd or 4th round pick in exchange for Russell Wilson, in exchange for, basically nothing. So which we can use to, and this draft class is stacked a little bit. I don't think, because of how many times we have won, like winning those 5 games in a row, we're not going to be at our chances of that going into the top of the draft class are probably over. But that doesn't mean that we're probably not going to go. I think we might go for a quarterback in the draft. I'll do an episode to talk about it, to do a mock draft sometime in the future, to see who I think Denver might get in the draft. Maybe looking at a wide receiver, to a guy that might be a better fit for a guy that might be better fit, like if we decide to get rid of Russ, but then have Jacoby Myers start next year. Not Jacoby Myers, I'm sorry. the backup quarterback for Denver, we might have him start next year and maybe build a team around him and see how he does with this offense. That might be something worth talking about, and have him be more like what Patrick Mahomes was in his rookie season, except he's much older now than Patrick Mahomes was at the time. I could see plenty of potential options like that. So with all we have a couple of comments. Los Angeles Chargers sweeping Denver. Sorry, bro, I do not agree with that. I think that this might be. I think we're gonna split. Now I can't figure out which game we're gonna win, but we do this every single year. Chargers win a game against the Broncos. Broncos win a game against the Chargers. I cannot figure out which game Denver will win and which game Denver will lose, but I do not think that they will. I do not think the Chargers will sweep. Damian says Zappy would be the starter. I don't think the Patriots would get a quarterback in the first round. Now I get okay. So now that we're on this topic, the winners of last night between the New England Patriots and Pittsburgh Steelers is everybody not named the New England Patriots and Pittsburgh Steelers. Pittsburgh was in talks of possibly winning the division. They have been outgained in yardage every single game, and still ended up winning games. But now Mitch Trubisky's coming in because injured to another quarterback. I get that. However, Mitch Trubisky is not the same guy as this guy that he was, and he is now hurt. I mean, yeah, he has now lost 2 straight games to teams that are under the 500 mark. And I do not think Pittsburgh's going to the playoffs. I don't. Now, who's going instead of Pittsburgh? Talk about Houston or Indianapolis, but that in that conversation. And as for the New England side, the more New England wins, the lower their draft stock's going to get. And if I'm Robert Kraft, I got to probably be praying for New England to stop winning those games like what they did against Pittsburgh. Again, we got another comment from Damian Hernandez. Broncos should keep Russ. I think Broncos has more problems to fix than quarterback. Plus, IMO, this quarterback draft class is not great other than Penix and Bo. I don't see any other good names in this draft. I agree with that. I agree with that because the Denver Broncos have won way too many games to be considered into this conversation. Now, you could also look into the conversation. Well, there's been coaches that have been fired in the first year before. So if Denver was losing that many games that they have, if Denver was losing like a lot of games, just kind of like what they were last year and what we have been since Peyton Manning, would we keep Sean Payton after the first year? Nah. Or would we keep our offensive and defensive coordinator, keep Vance Joseph and all that? If we had more 70 to 20 games, maybe. I think maybe I think maybe there might be a talk that the reason that oh gosh, why am I blanking on his name? I'm not I don't know why I'm blanking on his name. Oh gosh, Jacob. Uh, I do not remember his name. Okay, I'll get to that in a second. It's because he's not ready, and I could see that conversation about him taking over if Denver doesn't make the playoffs this year, and have him be the starter and see what he can do with this offense, and have another receiver for this Denver Broncos offense because Denver does not have as many talented receivers, and they haven't really been winning games off of their offense. Defense has been another story, but they haven't been really winning games because of their offense. Kansas City and Cleveland might be a different conversation, but Buffalo and Minnesota, if it wasn't for those bad penalty calls, we would be talking about a completely different story right now. And so last but not least, I'm just going to go ahead and finish off the show giving predictions for this week. The Houston Texans play the New York Jets Sunday, December 10th at 10 a.m. It's one of the 10 a.m. games out here on the West Coast. New York Jets, well, they cut Tim Boyle. Comes in Brett Rippon. Houston Texans been on a roll. I think the Texans are on a 1-game winning streak after losing the previous game to the Jacksonville Jaguars. I think that Houston will definitely win this game, and easily that is my easiest pick of the week. However, this game, I think this game is going to be closer in scoring than what I thought it was going to, than many people think, because of the New York Jets defense. The LA Rams will play against the Baltimore Ravens. The Ravens win this easily. Rams have been able to score, but so did the Detroit Lions, and not against Baltimore. Carolina Panthers play against the New Orleans Saints. The New Orleans Saints were down 21-0 in the previous week. They did come back and almost pull a comeback, but they didn't. They didn't end up coming and pulling up the comeback. I think they have revenge. I think they were mad after this week, and I think the Saints take this one easily. Indianapolis Colts, they go out and play the Cincinnati Bengals. One of the tougher games to pick of the week. I originally thought about picking Cincinnati because they did go out and beat up on Jacksonville's secondary, but in their game, keeping that game much closer than it should have been, and they ended up winning that game on Monday Night Football. Best game of the year, in my opinion. However, they go out and play the Indianapolis Colts, a defense that the secondary I think is going to be much of a different competition. Now, I still think Jacksonville might win this division, believe it or not, but we'll get to that when we get to that game. However, I think Indianapolis will take this one, and I think it's going to be very, very close. Tampa Bay Buccaneers against the Atlanta Falcons. This is not close for me. Besides possibly quarterback, and I know I'm not even sure about that. Name a position group that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers do better than the Atlanta Falcons. Yeah, I'll wait. Atlanta takes this one over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and the Falcons are the home team. Jacksonville Jaguars against the Cleveland Browns. Cleveland starting Joe Flacco. That tells me everything I really need to know. I'm taking Jacksonville to beat Cleveland. The Detroit Lions going up against the Chicago Bears. The Chicago is at home. Chicago plays in cold weather. It's playing in a cold weather game. Is out in Soldier Field. I think this might be my upset pick of the week. I'm actually taking the Chicago Bears to beat the Detroit Lions. Jared Goff in the cold, Jared Goff on the road. Difference, and completely different quarterback than where he plays his best. Seattle Seahawks is playing against the San Francisco 49ers. And the 49ers are the home team. 49ers, when they're on the road, actually just blew out Seattle. And this game's not going to be close for me. I'm taking 49ers to beat the Seahawks at home. This wasn't the easiest pick of the week, but I think this might be the biggest blowout of the week. Las Vegas Raiders against the Minnesota Vikings. I talked about it earlier in the episode. I actually kind of like Aiden O'Connell. I think he might be the quarter. I know there's not much game film on him, but he has been definitely a different guy compared to Jimmy Garoppolo. I think the Raiders take this one. Broncos against the Chargers. Chargers are the home team. I said on the show, I cannot figure out which game Denver will end up winning in the split. However, I also think that because the Chargers are the home team, I got to make a pick. I'm going with the Chargers to beat the Denver Broncos. Buffalo plays against Kansas City. We're having this conversation again where Buffalo, what do they do better than Kansas City? And I have one answer for that. And it's wide receiver. Offensive line, yeah, Kansas City takes that by a mile. Quarterback, obviously got to go with Kansas City. Head coach, Kansas City. Tight end, Kansas City. That being said, they've been struggling. I'd say I'm wrong about Denver, and they go out and continue to win games that they have been winning. Well, last week being the exception. I could see there being a path where Denver goes out and takes this division. That's my high side for this team. Not my expectation, but I could see that route happening too. This is a prove-it game for them. But this is also the same thing for Buffalo. If you win this game, this puts you back in the playoff picture. The question is, who really needs it more? And I think the answer is Buffalo. I got to go with Buffalo here. Philadelphia Eagles against the Dallas Cowboys. Dallas Cowboys are home. They have not lost a home game since 2022. Philadelphia Eagles are coming off of a very, very bad loss against the San Francisco 49ers. So let's just say that fantasy football this week, if you have Dallas or Philadelphia Eagles defense on your fantasy team, yeah, you're doing it wrong. I think Philadelphia will lose this game, go 2 losses in a row. However, I think they might end up scoring at least 30 points. 30, maybe even go like the 40 route, and the winner scores like 45 and 48, 45 or something like that. Something crazy like that. Probably not, but it's still a possibility. I think Dallas takes it because they're the home field team. But this is going to be a high-scoring game. Now you go into the Monday Night Football games. I do not feel good about making this next pick. Green Bay Packers are playing on the road against New York Giants. New York Giants are coming off a bye week. Players that are hurt are, I'm not saying that are back to 100%, but they had a week to heal. They had a week for footage. Green Bay, their last game they played was a Sunday night game, which is kind of a short week for them. A shorter week for them. I'm taking Green Bay to win, but I do not feel good about this. I don't, and please don't ask me why. Tennessee Titans against the Miami Dolphins. That's not going to be close. Dolphins win. This might, yeah, I that's not going to be close. All right. So that has been another episode of the Sports Status Podcast with your host Nate the Great. I'll see you guys. I'll see you guys next week. Peace.
All sports, all plays. All sports, all plays. All sports, all plays. 365, we making a plays. You talking the game, get you through the days. We're high in the court, the dime in the lane. Variety topics living the same. All presentation, sports information. In the airways, taking the nation.